Good afternoon. Pete Wildebohr. Melissa Mason.
Here.
Josie Barnhart.
Here.
Pat Bradford.
I am here.
Judy Justice. Dr. Tim Merrick.
In the house.
And David Perry.
Here. All right. Again, thank you all for being here, and to our senior staff, thank you for being here, and those in the audience, thank you for being here. Next order of business will be our invocation, and we'll follow that with our Pledge of Allegiance, and we have asked Ms. Justice to lead that for today. So it says so. It says so right there.
I am Gail Tabor. I am the pastor of Salt Inclusive Methodist Community, and I invite you to pray with me, y'all. Holy One, today as we gather to do the work of providing for the education of all the children in New Hanover County, we first pause to remember to be grateful. We give thanks for the absolute joy of living in this beautiful place and for the beauty of your creation and our mandate to care for all that is in it, especially the children who are often seen as the least among us. We pray not just for the physical safety of all the students and teachers in our schools, but that we would be creating spaces where all are seen, heard, and appreciated, not just because of our differences, but because just as beautiful music is made and harmony comes from blending of different voices, so the beauty of humanity shines in our differences. Guide us as we face times of concern and fear, that our choices and our vision will be ever toward all, and especially to all of those who are most vulnerable. May the decisions made here be inclusive and equitable. Even when we have difference of opinions, give us a spirit of unity. Help us not just to listen to others as they share their point of view, but to hold them in full regard for all of our shared humanity. Aid us and aid this body to work as a unified team as they lead New Hanover County schools. May every child and family know their worth and their value to this body and to the community at large. In our ever-changing world, we pray for these board members and for the various level of official and staff who serve the students and the families of New Hanover County schools. Bless this body with their decisions, that it would be a benefit to all those who work for, attend, or have a child or person for whom they care in New Hanover County schools. We offer this in all the names of the one we call holy. Amen.
Justice.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
We have a first and second. Any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Merrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to add to the agenda a conversation that has been brought to us, I think, by the public. As of today, by my count, we have over 120 emails from the public on all sides concerned about our choice to change or not change the student workday from the teacher workday from the 4th to the 1st. And I'd like to add that to the agenda so that we can discuss, not only for the public's sake, but actually for my sake, because I was not present at that meeting and I didn't know it was going to be voted on. Thank you.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have first and second. Let me write that down. Okay, Dr. Merrick. And Justice. Is there a discussion? Well, no.
It is,
Go ahead.
yeah,
Start
thank
with
you.
Then go to Mr. Perry.
So I hear all the concerns, and I think they're all valid. If I do a simple pros and cons list, here's what I come up with. Student safety has to be our number one concern. And my concern is if we don't have enough educators or substitutes in the buildings, that becomes a safety risk. I've heard that we have some 300 teachers that have asked for the leave and have been granted, and for that I think that's excellent that our district could provide that. I'm also concerned that there might be some educators who simply walk out, even though that's not the policy that they should follow. So I am concerned we're not going to have enough kids in school. I'm concerned that instructional time will be compromised because we all know Substitutes are not quite the
Is
same.
this the discussion, or is this, we're talking about adding it to the agenda,
We're-
not actually having the discussion?
Yeah, we are not having a discussion at this point, obviously.
Oh, then
So,
I'm
point
happy
of order,
to, I'm happy
could
to
you rule on
point.
that point, please?
Yeah, I will.
Mr. Chair?
I find that is well received, so.
I will hold my comments till later, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Perry? So this is whether, again, the topic right now is whether to add a discussion of May 1st discussion day to the agenda today.
I would speak in opposition to adding it. We had this opportunity 2 weeks ago, which was still short notice. I was on the fence about it then because I wouldn't think there was enough notice to parents. If we were to reconsider it now, there would be literally 3 days, which is not nearly enough to our parents to make arrangements for their children. So I am against us discussing this whatsoever as far as if further, reconsidering our decision. As I have told others in the community, had this come before us 3 months ago, I probably would have voted differently about 2 weeks ago, but we just didn't get it in time.
Okay. Ms. Justice?
More than any other reason we need to be discussing this is because of our staff. Once more, we're 50th in the nation in per pupil expenditure. That's why they're going to Raleigh. And our staff is very concerned and needs this opportunity to have themselves heard. And it's our responsibility to support our staff. And as a parent, a grandparent that might as well be a parent, and has gone through this from my first kid, I'm over 40 years experience with kids at home, and I can tell you right now, they can handle 2 or 3 days. It could snow tomorrow. It won't. But, I mean, you'd still have to make arrangements. This is too important to our staff. And anybody up here that doesn't realize how powerful this is, the message you're sending, you'll find out because it's not fair to them.
And I'm going to speak to it quickly, and then we'll vote on it. We did have, as was mentioned, we did have this discussion 2 weeks ago when there was a reasonable amount of time to make the decision. As was said, I think 3 days is not enough. The 20th, we'll be going to the legislators with teachers and board members to discuss these topics. I met with a legislator, a representative.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, okay. All right, I'll call myself on that. We'll go ahead, I will say that is well taken, so you caught me. I'm just going on, but, Ms. Bradford.
I will vote against it. And yes, yesterday we did meet with the state representative and we shared the budget concerns with them in person. So I feel strongly that we are presenting the concerns of the teachers and teachers' pay very comprehensively.
Okay. And Ms. Blue, would you please, again, the motion here, yes, sir?
Because I was called out for speaking incorrectly about I would like to now address
Okay,
the actual.
please go ahead.
Because the reason I want to put this on the agenda is because we have 120 emails, which I know that means we have at least 1,200 people out there concerned about this. And I think it deserves a broader discussion. They obviously have already heard the discussion that we did have, and the fact that they still have so many concerns suggests that we owe it to the public to flesh out the rest of our thinking so that they can have an understanding of where we're coming from.
Okay. Thank you. Again, the motion in front of us is to add a discussion about May 1st, the NCAE rally in Raleigh. Rally in Raleigh. There we go. So, is that right? Yes. Okay. Ms. Bowie, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Mason?
No.
Ms. Justice?
Yes.
Ms. Bradford?
No.
Dr. Merrick?
Yes.
Mr. Wildebohr?
No.
Mr. Perry?
No.
And Ms. Barnhart?
No.
So that is defeated 5-2, so that will not be added. So I will again entertain a motion to approve the agenda. I think we already had that. Motion and second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed. Passes 7-0. Okay. We will go as we have always. We'll go through the agenda, the draft agenda, and we will discuss each thing. Please, just jump in and if we have any questions or concerns, we will add, them or discuss them, not add them necessarily, but. Call to order, roll call, invocation, national anthem, pledge of allegiance. Who would like to do the pledge?
I'm happy to.
Let's go with Dr. Merrick. Dr. Merrick. I think you did it last month. Merrick. All right, approval of the agenda, approval of minutes, committee reports. I think we have several this time.
You'll have finance for sure.
We have finance.
We didn't have a curriculum.
Other ones? We have finance, yes? We have
Mr. Chair,
legislative.
legislative has the revised legislative agenda, but if it's the will of the board to put it in the committee reports or under old business, either one, because it'll be potentially approving the legislative agenda that was sent back to committee, so.
Maybe we could do the discussion at that point and then just move it down to new business, but we'll get to that later on.
Okay, so not
Okay.
under committee reports.
Well, we can have that definitely at that time, the majority of the meat of it, I guess it was. Okay. Any other committees we know of? No? Okay. So maybe we won't take, let's put it down to 10 minutes then. And I'm sorry, Ms. Mason, would you please keep up? Yeah.
I was already
Yeah,
there.
you're on top of it. Thank you. I appreciate that. Recognitions, 20 minutes.
Yes.
Okay.
15 to 20, but I don't know.
Hold the 20. Always happy. Student voice, I'd love to see that back in place. So we will hear from a student or two or a group. Very soon.
Sorry.
Or not.
We have so many awesomeness, I double booked this. And my argument is that we won't have one in June because the kids will be home.
Okay.
So there was someone who was already on the docket, and then I met some kid who was so amazing that I added them too. So
Okay.
if you're okay, we'll probably need 20 minutes.
20
for
minutes.
that.
20 minutes. Let me see, hearing from kids. Woo! Yep, okay.
I'm right, aren't I? We have two.
Can we say a half hour? Can we spend the whole meeting doing that? I mean, that would be awesome. But all right, we will go to 20 minutes there. Excuse me. May, student voice, 10 minutes. Teacher voice, sorry. See, I focused.
Let me offer a clarification. So we had 3. My last one has not confirmed, so we're going to leave that one alone. We have a student coming from Porter's Neck and
Yes.
family. And then the other request was for our teacher cadet group from Laney to speak, and we've added them as teacher voice.
Oh, okay, well,
So the time still works, 10 and
Yay.
10.
That's why I'm not really supposed to say anything.
okay, well, so we have students, and more students, and that's awesome. So, very, very cool.
So bring that back down to 10.
No, it's 20.
No,
she-
10 for
Nope,
each.
she's
10 for each. Oh, okay. Okay. Corrected. Boy, I tell you. 10 and 10. So, okay, very cool.
10 for teacher, 20 for teacher.
No, 10 and 10.
10 for student, 10 for teacher.
Right. Back to 10 and 10.
Ignore anything I said in the last 2 minutes. That's going to make it simple.
All right, student superintendent's report? 5 minutes? Okay. Mine will also be 5 minutes. Information, the elementary ELA curriculum overview. How long will that take? With questions and everything?
Could she have 10 minutes to do that? If not, we can do it in 5.
Oh, we can say 10. Is that with questions?
10 with questions, yes.
10 with questions, okay. That's what we'll do. Call audience remains at 60. All right, now's the time to pull anything off you may have. We have consensus items, and we have given allotted 5 minutes for that. Participate. Learning Master Service Agreement. Ma'am?
I would just love if somebody could shed some light on this.
I can do that. That is the contract that we have to staff the International School of Gregory for those Spanish-speaking teachers. We've used them for different languages in the past, but right now that's what we use it for.
And how many are we needing to?
They're on a rotating basis, so depending on how many years the teacher has been here, how much time they have left. So we usually kind of roll anywhere between like 3 and 6, but we stay staffed somewhere between 8 and 10.
So the visa that is done with a Participate company, and I will tell you that if anyone has ever had to try to do a visa for an educator, it is a lot. So this company sort of does all that work for us. The cost that we have to pay Participate, the teachers that come to us internationally don't receive retirement benefits, so it really sort of balances the cost out. and those people can stay for 3 years, and then we can authorize them, if they are doing well, to stay for an additional 2. They are required to go back home after 5 years and then cycle back, but this is a company we've worked with. This is a renewal, so it's one we've worked with before.
Okay. Starbase, Wilmington MOU.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I would just love to know how many of our schools are able to participate in this opportunity. I know this is something that's sought after all throughout the southeast, and so to have it right here in our backyard is a wonderful thing, but I just wasn't sure how many schools actually get the opportunity.
Over the last 3 years, we've had 16 schools participate, and there is a typo. It should say that this is a renewal contract.
Renewal.
Or renewal MOU, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Contracts extending into fiscal year 2027. Nothing? Okay. Microsoft EES, agreement with Soft Choice.
Is this just in reference to this crossover for our educators to go from Google to Outlook?
Ms. Brenson.
No, this is a yearly contract. It actually covers the operating system on our computers, the operating system on our servers, security features, disaster recovery as well. We use them, so it's multiple things. It's not just the migration. Yep.
Okay. Contracts and purchase orders. Winter Park lift station replacement.
I'd just like to know what a lift station is.
Oh, it's for the septic, but go ahead.
Oh, you don't want to knock it.
So the lift station, I'm assuming it's wheelchair accessible.
No, it's accessible to some. You're going to be embarrassed.
The lift station is used to pump sewage from our septic tanks up so that it can then be flushed out to connect with the sewage
Nice.
line.
I'm really glad that you brought this to us, because I'm, yeah, thanks. Lift station.
A lot of poop in the world.
Not a pumping station, a lift station, okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I want to say that Rob's so good, he's number 1 in the number 2 business.
Oh, so bad.
Okay, on that high note, we'll carry on. Whew. DHHS transport contract. Agreement, hometown ticketing renewal.
I have a question about that. Can you explain this and what this is for exactly, and then?
I like it.
Please. Jill.
We have been using hometown ticketing, again, this is a renewal. We've used them for several years in a row to help manage our capacities and manage our tickets for our athletic events.
Well, let's go to Ms. Justice and then back.
I want to have that pulled so we can have a discussion.
Okay. We'll pull that off. Do that next week? Can we do that next week? For that, we'll have to figure out a time. Mr. Perry?
Are we still not taking cash from non-students at these for tickets?
So for regular athletic events, we have not been taking cash at the gate because we have not built into the budget a process for adding the security and the those to collect the cash at the gate. So that would be a budgetary need.
And we're going to pull it, so we'll discuss it further next week. So we'll add some time to do that, though. Yes, ma'am.
But my question, because I believe we do have a cash option for our students, it's just not at the gate, is my understanding. So we still do sell cash tickets, but it's at the school, or is that incorrect?
So we have offered we've offered many options for students to pay cash ahead of time and for a ticket to be reserved for them. We also, while I'm just going to say it out loud for transparency, we don't want it to be overused, but if a student comes to an athletic event and they want to be in and they don't have, they only have cash, we're not going to turn a student away. So we have a commitment to making sure our students who want to participate and be there for athletic events, that we can do that. We just also have a difficult time managing that amount of cash unless we have someone designated that is trained in the handling of a level of cash, and then also have security for them to feel safe at that gate.
But we'll discuss that even more next week. So we'll add some time to do that. Thank you, Mr. Varnum. Western Governors University MOU, MOU with YMCA, YWCA, and NC Swim.
I was delighted to see that every school was included in this one this year. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Absolutely.
And we encourage you guys to come to the YMCA breakfast as well. They're going to be working on ways to continue this program.
Yeah, that's awesome. Swim. My kids all swam. Yeah, it was
I was there
awesome.
last night swimming.
Let's see where. Agreement between New Hanover County Board of Education and Coastal Horizon and what clinic renewal?
Oh.
MOU with the Educational Without Walls renewal. Amendment to contract between New Hanover County Schools and Learning Perspectives, Inc.
That one I have a question about.
Okay, go ahead.
I kind of remember this from last time, but I just think that it's special ed. It started in July of '25. The original contract amount was $3,696. It's gone up 1,675%. When we tell people that our costs are going up, this is a perfect example of a radical increase in cost. The change orders are almost $600,000 on the previous ones. This one's only $31,000, but the contract went from a reasonable amount to just a huge amount. And it's just one more example of everything that we're doing costs more.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point that out.
So no questions? Okay. So, yes, sir.
I thought I had asked about this last time, because I said the same thing. I said, how in the world did it get from there to there? Because that's a heck of a change order, but I think it was explained away. Perhaps Ms. Sutton can enlighten us again.
Yeah,
I can explain that for you.
Okay.
Generally, we do spend a significant amount of money with this type of service, and specifically with Learning Perspectives. The original contract amount was established for us to get our contract in place prior to our dollars arriving from all the many sources that our special education dollars arrive from. We did not expect to only spend $3,600 on Learning Perspectives. We expected to spend a significant amount of money because our students have significant needs that Learning Perspectives provides for us under a contract service. So this is an annual occurrence where I come back and bring you significant increase to this contract in order to address the needs of our students.
Okay. And just for time's sake, either Ms. Justice, Ms. Varnum, or the two of you together, how much time do you think we will need to further discuss the hometown ticketing?
no more than 5.
5 more? Okay, so we'll add 5 minutes there to,
Well, how's the time going? We'll do 10.
we'll do 10. Okay, let's
And if
do,
you guys would do me a favor and either text me or Julie what your questions are so I can make sure we have them ready to answer.
She probably already knows that we've been through this before.
Yeah, right.
Not the first rodeo.
okay, so that'll give us 15 minutes total. So we have 10 minutes, 5 minutes for the consensus items, and then we'll have a 10-minute for letter H, the hometown ticketing renewal discussion. Okay. All right, going over to policy, I'm looking to my right to Ms. Mason. We have 15 minutes allotted. Does that sound about right?
So just to be clear, I've spoken with Ms. Bowie about separating them because 2 of them are ones that the board sent back or were things that we had discussed. The remaining ones are just small little legislative updates. And so those will be separated. Hopefully those will not take much time at all. And the other 2, I don't know how much discussion we need to have. I'm going to say 10.
10 total, or?
Does that, other policy people, does that seem reasonable? You think 15? Okay, 15 is fine. 15 is fine.
Mr. Perry?
Those include, I'm sorry I haven't had an opportunity to review the policy consensus yet, but would that include the changes we're contemplating about call to audience?
So the 2 policies that will be separate are 2310 and 3540. Those are the ones that, those were board changes. The remaining ones are all NCSBA updates. So.
And a majority of those are just the legal references.
Super,
so we
all
should
of
be able to
those
just
are, yeah.
Go right through them.
Yeah.
Okay, we have 15 minutes for old business, but I don't see anything under old business.
Yes,
Mr.
there
Chair?
will be.
Yes, there, oh,
The
would you like to add
legislative-
something to old business?
Yes, the
Okay.
legislative committee met yesterday, and so we have the updated legislative agenda for the board to approve, so I would move that we add this under old business. So
Okay,
do
I'll-
that.
first and second, any discussion on adding legislative agenda?
And then my only
Wait a
discussion
second,
of that.
we gotta vote on it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All in favor of adding legislative agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, like sign. Passes 7-0. Back to you, ma'am.
My only point of discussion, it was sent to committee to re-change some verbiage of it, and so that's what the committee spent time doing yesterday, to try to better reflect what the board's needs are. One thing that did come to attention, and I can save this part for discussion if you want me to, there, when you click on our website, you can see New Hanover County Board of Education legislative agenda items, and it's kind of that blue sheet, those bigger priorities. But then if you click on the About Us for New Hanover County Schools, it goes into great detail with all the stats specifically
look,
related
we're
to New
seeing it right
Hanover
here.
County. And so I wanted to draw attention to that because I think that's helpful with the explanation process. And if you scroll down to the bottom of the About Us page, it shows some of the highlights that we have been able to receive specifically for New Hanover County Schools to advocate for our students and staff. There you go. And so those are some of the things that over the last few years we have specifically gotten that's not necessarily applicable to the rest of the state. So I did want to just point that out to everybody listening.
And how much time do you think we need?
I think 15 minutes will totally be fine. I don't think we need that much. I had reached out to and taken the feedback and tried to compile it in a way that reflected everything that I heard from everybody, so.
Okay, Dr. Barnes?
The other thing that will need to be on old business, we are discussing the budget today, but it will be needed to be voted on for approval as well. So if we could put that in old business. Obviously, if we have all our questions answered today, that shouldn't take much time next
Okay,
week.
well, I'll make a motion, we add budget approval to our old business. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Passes 7-0. And again, why don't we say 20 minutes total for that whole, not for all of old business. So, another 5 that. Dr. Mayor.
Please, will the legislative committee please send out by
email ASAP, because we're putting something on the agenda that we don't have. I know it's up there, I know it's online, but I don't think I should have to go search for it. Please send it to me.
Absolutely. We'll do
Still
it.
prettying it up for a one-page sort of kind of thing.
But you will get
So
it.
as soon as that's done, we'll get it.
Thank you.
Can it be, is it fair to say, Dr. Barnes, can it be by the end of the day today or first thing tomorrow?
We have a lot going on this week. We're committed to getting it as fast as we can.
Okay.
And just a question, can we not send the old copy? Can we send the old copy to them?
You guys already have the old copy.
Just pass it around.
I mean, the old copy that we changed.
That's the old copy, right.
Yeah, we'll get it to you just as soon as we can.
Okay, right. We talked about the old copy, and we send it back for...
Right, but I mean, the
changes.
updated one, but it's not prettied up one.
Got it, yep.
What was that noise? Okay.
Twice was all you can
All
do.
right, that's all I get. All right, try. All right, any new business? I don't think we have any new business. Closed session. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Perry. Yes, sir.
My understanding was, unless something's changed, that I made a motion to add to the agenda
Yes, you did.
regarding a legislative workday for the next upcoming school year. Is
You
that going to
absolutely
be here on
did.
new business?
Yes, you did. So and that's something we have to, that's why we discuss these things. So that's exactly, so we do have new business. Legislative workday, what was the title again? I'm sorry.
A legislative workday for,
Okay.
for the 26-27 calendar. That might take, I know there's a lot around that I'm guessing maybe 15 minutes.
20, 27, 15 minutes, okay.
And for the ease of the board, I did pull out all the work days we already have in the calendar for that year, so that'll make it simpler for us to look at.
And since it's not here, would you make the motion to add that?
Oh, okay. I make a motion to add the 26-27 legislative workday discussion to the new business.
Okay, and I'll second that. Any discussion?
Yes.
Ma'am?
What would it look like?
Is it like a special meeting that we just discuss that? Or goes to the calendar committee to discuss that, or what does that look like?
Well, we're gonna discuss it next week.
Okay.
And then we'll go through, exactly what it will, I think Mr. Perry's gonna bring forth his ideas, and then we can discuss it.
Okay.
And whether we do it, it's not on the calendar yet, but, the calendar's already set for next year, I'm correct, right? So we would have to address that. and
But if
change
if you choose to do it on a day that's already designated as a work day,
Mhm.
you won't have to change the calendar.
Right.
Which is why I pulled those days
Okay.
together, so we know.
Perfect. Seems like you just said that. I appreciate that. Thanks, Jeff. Oh, wow. Woo, go me. All right, and I think that ends of course, when we have closed session if we need it. Personnel report, correspondence is 5 minutes, announcements 5 minutes, and then adjournment. Ms. Mason, where are we? Where are we?
Not counting correspondence and announcements, we're over.
Over, and we also
We're
probably
at-
need 5 minutes.
I added the 5 minutes
did,
for
okay.
bathroom, yes. We're at 3 hours and, what's 75% of an hour? 45? 3 hours, 45.
So we're about 15 minutes over.
So we're 15 over.
So what's the will of the board? Do we want to suspend the rules and go 15 minutes over? Do we want to delete something? Ms. Justice?
I move that we go 15 minutes over, suspend the rules of the board.
Okay, is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it for conversation.
Okay, so we have a first and second. Let's kind of have a conversation. Ms. Justice, please.
Why should we, crunch for 15 minutes, that's all? Because we're going to be sitting here and probably say it anyway, at some point, most likely during the meeting.
Mhm.
So let's just plan ahead and maybe it'll just stay within that parameter. That's my opinion.
Ms. Mason? Ms. Mason.
So, a couple months ago, we voted to make it 3.5 hours. And we still haven't met that 3.5 hours. And it's policy, and we still haven't met that 3.5 hours. So we either need to reconsider policy, or we need to abide by policy. That's my opinion.
Dr. Merritt and Ms. Bradford.
Well, I remember when I voted on it, I said, I think it is aspirational, and I think when we need to, we will go over. But I think the real question is, we were being very, maybe a little bit lax today and generous with our time, and perhaps we can take a look at what we put down for time today and tighten it up, because that was the idea of saying 3.5 hours. So I'm okay about suspending the rules and going to 3:45, but I think it's also worth saying, hey, maybe we can tighten this up.
Ms. Bradford?
And I would be in favor of tightening that, and if we can't do it, then dropping something, maybe the last thing we added. If that's not urgent, would it hurt to wait a month? Because I agree with Vice Chair Mason, policy's policy, when we can do it, we should do it. And not immediately start just, we passed that, but, we're not going to do it. And on top of that, I like getting out of here in 3.5 hours. We have a lot of meetings.
Ms. Barnhart and then Mr. Perry.
Thank you. I agree with keeping to the 3.5 hour and reflecting on either condensing time or pushing something to the next meeting. This is something that, not all of these things have to be discussed at this meeting, and so we can look at and say either we can shorten the discussion and have more one-on-ones with people so that we're at a good conversation when it comes to the meeting to come together, and I think we should do it.
Okay, Mr. Perry?
As far as the last item that I added, I'm more than happy to have discussions with people between now and then, so maybe we can tighten that down, at least take 5 minutes off of that. So, assuming everyone would like to have discussions, I'd be more than willing, because it's just an idea at this point, and I'm sure you have a lot to add to it. But I do think it's important that we do it and not just cut it and wait until next month. We are in a situation where a lot of teachers are questioning whether we are on their side or not, and I think this would be a good message to them that we are. So,
And, I haven't spoken, so I'm going to speak. I do see, I'm going to go back to the days of Ms. Justice and I back when we used to have, 8 and 9 hour meetings. So 4 hours always seemed like a great, a great move. 3.5 is even better, but, and that kind of thing. But, I do hear what Mr. Perry is saying. I think that, as Dr. Merritt just brought up, maybe even having a discussion today, about this same topic, and if we can move forward and do something proactive for them, for our staff for next year, I think it's probably worth a 10-minute discussion. That still puts us over, and I do understand we have a policy that says 3.5 hours, and that's why I'm, I don't know. Anyway, I won't use my words to describe myself, but I'm a stickler on trying to get everybody, as quickly done with things as possible. But again, we have a job to do, and I think that's what we need to do. So, Ms. Bradford, and then
I think it
Dr.
would be
Merritt.
reasonable to do that, and we could honor the request over there and just go ahead and schedule it for the June meeting, get it on the agenda for the June meeting, so that it doesn't get overlooked. So I think wasn't the rule, when you asked to have something put on the agenda, the board chair has 2 meetings to get it on, to still fall within that parameter, and we'd know that we're going to hear it. So I would be in favor of that. I can't remember if we have a motion on the floor right now or not. I think we do.
We do, to suspend the rules from Ms. Justice. Okay, Dr. Merritt.
Well, I'm also noticing that we've got 5 minutes for correspondence, and I don't know that any of us have any correspondence.
I didn't count that.
Oh, you didn't count that? Okay. The other thing I was thinking of is the consensus item H that we're going to pull. I'm wondering whether that's a need for more information or if that is an objection to the agreement. Because if it's just a request for information, perhaps those who are looking for more information could get that before the meeting so that we can put it back in the consensus.
Mm-hmm. That would save us 10 minutes, and then Mr. Perry's option 5. Yeah. So,
You talking about H?
Ms. Mason?
Yes.
And I was going to suggest, I don't think policy is going to take that long, so I was going to suggest taking 5 minutes off of policy and making that 10, so.
Okay.
Especially if we reorganize them.
Yeah,
Okay,
once it's
so
reorganized.
let's see what we have right now. If we took 5 minutes, as Mr. Perry said, off of the discussion for the legislative workday, and we took 5 minutes from policy, so that would give us 10. And do you think, Ms. Justice, we could take 5 minutes from the hometown ticketing?
Well, originally we were going to 10. Well, let's try it at 5. I mean,
Okay.
that can happen.
Well, there you go.
Try to get the information out ahead of time.
We are perfectly at time, but you still have a motion on the table, so we have to
I'll withdraw
respect
my
that.
motion if we're at time now.
Okay, great. So we are perfectly at time. We have everything on there. Good job, everybody. Yay. All right, let's go home. No, I'm kidding. All right, next on our agenda for today, thank you for your due diligence in that area. We have our facility condition assessment presentation, 30 minutes. And here they come. Come on down. Thank you for being here.
So, thank you. While Ms. Killian's getting set up there, I just want to offer a brief intro. So, as some of you may know, every 5 years, DPI requires us to submit long-range capital plans to the State Board of Education. We've just recently received information that they are switching to an online database to collect that information this year, so we're awaiting training that I think will be the 6th and 7th of May. But the bottom line is that the request for that information has come out, and so we'll be uploading that in the weeks and months ahead. But this facility condition assessment has been completed in our efforts to help guide sort of the long-term planning. So it's twofold. One, it's to meet state requirement, and then 2, it's also to help us look further down the line, which I think also aligns with what we've heard from the county in terms of their request to ensure that we are looking, more towards the future as opposed to seeming like we're coming to them every year with just, a pot of projects we've hobbled together, which isn't the case, but I think this will help us in that regard. So this is Jessica Killian. She is with Turner, Townsend, Heary, Turner and Townsend, Heary. Thank you. She's going to kind of give us a high-level overview of the facility condition assessment, some of the outcomes that hit some of the data points. Where we're at right now, wanted you to understand this is one piece of the puzzle. So, for example, when we're making decisions about anything in the district, we try and base it on multiple data points. This is going to provide us with some of those data points for our facilities. These are not directives from anybody. These are simply providing us with information we don't currently have, or we have it now. And then the final thing I wanted to point out is that our next steps district-wide are to engage in some training for the database that they've created. The FCA tracker is very comprehensive, and for us to be able to use it the way we need to, we want to be able to sit down with their tech person to show us exactly how we can use it the way that they've designed it to be used. So that's kind of our next step in our team, and then we'll be able to use that to finalize recommended bond projects, specifically with regard to HVAC systems, and then, as mentioned, to help us develop long-term, comprehensive and system-wide sustainability plans for the district. So, all of that being said, I will turn it over to Ms. Killian. Say thank you for being here. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and thanks for giving us this opportunity. I'm going to go through, I think I can go to the next slide. Yes, okay. So our agenda today, I'm going to introduce myself and a couple other folks on the team. We're going to talk about what a facility condition assessment is. Dr. Morgan gave a great lead-in, but I'm going to talk a little bit more detail about that. And then Facility Condition Index, FCI, is a term we use a lot in the FCA world, so I'll go over that. Talk about a little bit further about what we did, and then go through the results for New Hanover County Schools. CSP stands for Capital Spending Plan, and again, I'll talk a little bit more about what that is. So for myself, I'm Jessica Killian. I'm a vice president at Turner & Townsend Heary. I run our Carolinas Project and Program Management Group. Heary has been doing program management in North Carolina for 30 years. We've been doing K-12 program and project management for 70 years. And I've been doing this stuff for a long time. I'm located in Raleigh, but really like what I do. So I'm more on the project program management side. But we had two experts from our facility condition assessment team. Martin Harrison, there in the middle, has over 30 years of experience doing facility condition assessments for public projects. He actually retired a few weeks ago, which was a loss to us for sure, but he was very much involved in getting through all of this data. And then Larry Davis, who's located in Winston-Salem, has been working with us as well, and so he's kind of taking over that last little bit. But again, both very, very qualified in doing facility and condition assessments. Larry's an architect, Martin has that type of experience too, and so we bring that kind of expertise to what we're doing. All right, so why do FCAs matter? There is the 5-year plan that the state requires, but a facility condition assessment, an FCA, is really about supporting the buildings that people are in. We all know that children learn better if they're in good facilities, teachers teach better if they're in good facilities, and so part of doing an FCA is really determining what the baseline is for what is going on in the building. So, it talks about, as Dr. Morgan said, planned maintenance. It's about the systems in the building, and we want to do those as frequently as we can, every 5 to 10 years, to make sure that we understand what's happening in the buildings. So it's really important, and I recognize you guys for doing this kind of effort. This is in addition to what the state requires, but we went through all 4 million square feet of this school district and looked at a lot of different stuff to put together the information that we have. So again, I appreciate it, and you'll get a lot of detail around that. Our FCA process, like Dr. Morgan pointed out, I want to emphasize that this is really about systems. It's called a facility conditions assessment. It's about the mechanical systems, the structure of the building, the exteriors of the building. It does not focus on educational suitability, on operational security deficiencies, which can be a very, very big reason about why you make choices for renovating or rebuilding schools. But this is focused on the facilities. We brought in experienced professionals with architectural and engineering backgrounds, again, to walk all of the schools and the administrative spaces. And FCAs are a point in time to just establish that baseline. Again, things are going wrong because you get work orders, and Chris Walker and his office get called, but what does that actually mean, and how can we plan for the future and start really being more efficient with the money that the county gives, and also support why we need that kind of money for operational maintenance, and then some of the bigger things that may be happening with a bond. So we go in and we look at everything we can to establish a baseline for all of that. So like I mentioned, we're looking at the site, we're looking at structural, we're looking at architectural, which encompasses a lot of things: interiors, building envelope, roof, windows, roofing, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire, life safety systems, everything that makes up the building, makes it operate. And then we do an inventory of all of that. We look at everything, categorize it, assess it, assign a replacement cost, and put it into a database so that you can understand what the impact is of those conditions, if they're failing, if they need to be replaced, and also when they might fail and be replaced. But I've got a list here on the slide of all the even more detail of what we looked at: doors, walls, painting, cabinetry, elevators. All of that goes into that. So it takes a lot of time to go through this. We spent 4 to 6 weeks going through the schools and putting all this together. So when I talk about how long things are going to last, we talk about remaining useful life and estimated useful life. Those are terms that FCA folks use a lot, so EUL and RUL. And I just want to touch on this real quickly. So everything has an anticipated lifespan. We should replace roofs every certain amount of years. We should replace mechanical equipment every certain amount of years. We don't do that, but we should. And so we build these plans based on what we think should happen. It's based on industry standard, but it's also based on what's happening here. We may say mechanical equipment should last 10 years. When we're sitting 10 miles from the coast, it's not going to last 10 years. And so we want to understand and make sure that we're being sensitive about that. Something in Phoenix is not going to be the same as something in Wilmington. And so we're looking at the data in that respect, so it really is informed by where we are. And then the remaining useful life, and I'll talk about what that means here when we get to the numbers, but the remaining useful life is simple math. When was it installed? How long is it supposed to last? And is that plus or minus? If it's minus, then we call it deferred maintenance. Again, I'll talk about that in a little bit, but that means that it should be replaced. Doesn't mean it has to be. That just means that based on when it was installed, it should be. And again, that informs some of the numbers that we put together. So you can see kind of how long things last. We should paint every 5 years. We should do windows every 20. But with maintenance and other things, that doesn't necessarily need to happen. I'm going to touch on this real quick. This is just a snapshot of the dashboard for FCA Tracker. This is New Hanover County Schools dashboard. And so all 5,388 recommendations are in this software. You can pull them up based on system, based on location, based on remaining useful life, all of that. So you can really use that. And like Dr. Morgan said, there's some training that goes into that, but Dr. Morgan and his staff have already been in this and looking at this, and it's a really great tool to be able to understand. Back in the old days, we used to do these things and give you 500, 600, 700 pages worth of stuff. And it would go on a shelf and it would get forgotten about. This is much, much more dynamic, and you can really use it to do planning and understanding what's coming up. So it's a great software that you all have access to and will be able to use. Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, how long ago did we take it off the shelf and start putting it online?
It depends. Some of that is still happening. Some districts like to have it printed out. Most firms that are doing facility condition assessments are either using software like this or even Excel spreadsheets, using Microsoft Access, that kind of stuff, because it's too cumbersome to be able to flip through, especially when you're talking about 20, 30, 50 buildings. So.
Do you know about this district? How long ago?
Well, the last time you guys did a facility condition assessment was quite a while ago, so I imagine it was on paper back then. Yeah.
So we haven't, this hasn't happened yet.
This is all new.
This is new. Yeah, yeah. And thank you for the question. If you guys have questions, please, I want this to be a conversation. We don't need to get too off the rails, but I do want it to be a conversation, so let me know. All right, so facility condition index, that's a really, really small way to look and see, like, just a quick shot, what does the building look like? And again, just math. I'm a former engineer, so it makes me happy. But facility condition index is deferred maintenance over current replacement value. And deferred maintenance, you hear that term a lot in facilities, and what it really means is stuff that should have been replaced but hasn't yet. Again, doesn't mean that it's necessarily broken and, and sitting there not working, but based on that, when it was installed, how long should it last, it hasn't been done yet. And that number, can get bigger and bigger and bigger as, your operational needs are small, or your operational funding is small and your operational needs are high. But it's really about focusing on other big projects, and maybe we let the roof go another year. Maybe we let the mechanical systems go another couple years. That's where we get that deferred maintenance. The implications of that, of having deferred maintenance, obviously increase costs. Something breaks more catastrophically because we haven't been able to fix it or repair it. Deterioration, the longer it sits there with dirty fan coils and things, the less efficient it is. Operational risks, it becomes much more catastrophic. We're replacing a lift station, those kinds of things. And then, of course, financial liability, like it just gets a bigger number, and it's sort of harder to get out of that. So ideally, we get deferred maintenance done quickly, but that doesn't always happen. And that's true for public entities, private, all of that. It just costs a lot of money to operate buildings. That current replacement value is based on how much it would cost to scrape it and rebuild it. Doesn't include design, furniture, all of that kind of stuff. But if this was a brand-new building, how much would it cost? So you can see if the top number gets higher because deferred maintenance is getting a lot, then it starts to make more sense to just replace it. And so people use that FCI number to help make that decision. And we'll talk about that as how it relates to the school district as well. But if we need to go back to this, or if you've got a question on this going forward, just let me know. So again, just sort of graphically, I wanted to point out that we tend to break FCIs into 5 different categories: excellent, good, fair, poor, and critical. In a perfect world, there'd be 0 deferred maintenance, and that means everything is fixed when it breaks, everything's replaced on a routine schedule. That never happens. But I want to point out that overall, New Hanover County Schools is sitting at like about 9% for the whole district, or about 9%. That's right on the line of good and fair. That's pretty good. That means that there's some things that are bad and we need to address them, but it also means that there are things that are functioning and working and that you're keeping up with things. So that's great. I do want to point out the second one though. So we also look at EFCI, and what that means is if we do nothing now and we keep doing nothing for a certain amount of time, in this case 20 years, what happens? Obviously it goes down. So if you do nothing for 20 years, you're going to get much further down into that fair, poor, critical range. Yes, sir, go ahead.
I'm sorry, on the FCI.
Yeah.
Right, this is district-wide.
Yep.
We are in the good category, but if we disaggregate that data, I'm sure we're going to see some schools that are not anywhere
And I will
near
talk
that.
about that for sure. Yeah, we brought that down, so I'll touch on that here in a little bit. Yeah, you're exactly right. And that's really, I mean, you can't look at it and say like, oh, everything's fine, because you're right. There are things that are not fine, but there are things that are good too. And so I do want to just recognize that. We do see some schools that, like, school districts that's way bad. Yes, sir, go ahead.
I just want to add too that the FCI focuses on infrastructure systems. It doesn't necessarily focus on academic feasibility or safety in the same way.
Yeah, educational suitability, we talk about a
Thank
lot
you.
when we're talking about replacing schools or renovating schools, because a school that was built in 1970 does not operate the way it does now. A school that was built in the 90s does not operate the way it does now, for safety and for the size of classrooms and the adjacencies and breakout spaces. So there is a lot more for school district leadership to make decisions about when you're talking about, again, renovating or rebuilding that is way beyond systems.
But this is one leg of that stool that's essential for us to be aware of.
Yeah,
Thank you.
exactly. And again, it helps with data, it helps understanding what's going on. All right. So this is the big snapshot. So we looked at it for 20 years, and I'm going to break it down to 10 years in a second, but we looked at it for 20 years. So you have 20 years worth of what's happening right now and then what we project for the future. So there's about $675 million worth of systems needs, again, to Dr. Barnes's point, across that 4 million square feet. So if you had $700 million and you fixed everything right now, that's sort of what it means. But it also is a projection of things are fine now, maybe we'll have to replace things. And note that the construction cost, again, to replace everything is about $2.5 billion. So again, just some perspectives of where we're at. And I know that feels like a lot, but you have 4 million square feet. So, it averages out across that. So I'm going to break it down a little bit for you so you can understand. Okay, so now we're going to look at just 10 years. We have data and plan for 20, but 10 years is really as far as we get, because once you start getting into 12, 15, 20 years, you're starting to replace things that you already have replaced in the future. You know what I mean? And so so it starts to get a little fuzzy beyond that. So we like to look a little bit closer to 10 years. So I wanted to break it down here. So the big 3/4 pie there for integrity. Integrity is components or systems which are broken or in poor condition over the 10 years. And so that's about $350 million. Service life is the big blue pie, and that's components or systems which have surpassed their useful life. Remember, remaining useful life, estimated useful life. So there are things installed that are working that are just past their useful life. And again, that's fine. A boiler, a chiller that was built 20 years ago may still be functioning fine, mechanical unit that was installed 3 years ago may already be breaking. And so again, that's why we go out there, we look at everything and walked through those things. The other categories on there are code compliance, so violations that arise when like the building structure doesn't meet mandatory requirements. We didn't see a lot of those. Life safety, imminent risk of harm, we didn't see a lot of those. Energy, things that are, again, not functioning in an energy efficient kind of way, dirty fan coils, that sort of stuff. And then functionality, that one's a really small one too, and that's just a measurable negative impact on daily life. And so again, that can be very subjective. I saw her hand first, and then, yeah.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Whenever these categories are in place, are you also taking into account the warranty life of said things that you're evaluating, or no?
No, not necessarily, because
Okay.
again, that doesn't necessarily affect the lifespan of the piece of equipment.
I hear you,
Yeah.
but as like somebody who is helping adopt a budget, if we know it's covered, even if it gets broken, that's less of a concern for us
Yeah.
than something that's not covered and is broken.
And that's when you're building that plan, you would want to look at that. Hopefully, you're not having to replace things that are still in warranty. Roofs are the ones that have like really long warranties, but again, when you get into 15, 20 years of roof replacement, a lot of stuff isn't covered by warranty. But yeah, those are things that you would look at specifically when you're building a plan. We're really looking at just the systems that were there, yeah. Yeah, so integrity is components or systems that are broken or in poor condition right now. So and again, poor condition means it's still functioning, but we're getting to that point where it needs to be addressed and looked at. And that's across the districts, that's not just mechanical. So that could be broken sidewalks and things like that. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
So if I can give you an example from today's meeting, the Winter Park lift station was functioning when they went by there and they looked at this. It has broken twice since then.
Right.
And it is well past its useful life. So to
So
highlight
it's in
sort
there.
of, to highlight sort of, I think what we kind of see is where that useful life expectancy may be versus whether or not something is functioning. Sometimes we put things off, and then realize we can't put it off anymore. All those things do kind of come into play, and I think, again, I go back to this is another data point. These are another set of data points for us to use and consider.
Integrity. If I'm reading this right, 69.8% of our square footage is...
Of your costs.
Pardon me?
Of your costs, 69% of the costs, not the square footage.
Ah.
Yeah.
Is it in the red zone?
Yes, over 10 years.
And if I go to blue and I add that 27%, I'm darn close to everything, and that's the service life.
And again, yeah, so this is looking at things that need to be replaced. 100% of these costs are things that we say need to be done in the 10 years. So, so then it breaks down within that.
Okay.
So yeah, so again, it's not saying that like of everything that exists in the district, 100% of it needs to be replaced. It's saying of the costs identified for 10 years, this is how it breaks down, if that helps. Okay, good.
At what point, is there an analysis as far as at what point things need to be rehabbed, or rehauled, or fixed, or just simply gotten anew?
So we look at it as replacement, yeah.
So always replacement, never...
For this information, again, it's a data point, yeah.
And
Sorry.
it's hard because sometimes parts of a building get replaced before other parts do. And some of this is also predictive. We've all had a car that kept running past what any normal human would think would still continue to run. And we've all had cars that died way sooner than you expected.
That's right.
So this is as if the car lives exactly as long as it's supposed to. Sometimes it goes further, sometimes it doesn't.
It's a really excellent analogy. Yeah.
It is, isn't it?
In keeping with that, one of the analogies that I thought was a good one that I came up with in trying to follow Dr. Barnes' footsteps. Good luck. Yeah. But it helps me to think of it as like the Kelley Blue Book value. So if I go to sell my car, they tell me the Kelley Blue Book value is this. But then when I show up, it depends. Does it run the way that they're defining the Kelley Blue Book value? Or am I missing, are my headlights out? Is my interior ripped? Have I got dents on the body? And so to me, that is where you start to see, this is the Kelley Blue Book value, but to Dr. Barnes' point, if we've got to replace this part of the system, it changes everything slightly.
And kind of drawing Dr. Barnes' analogies, like we probably also have that car where, one thing keeps going, and then the next thing happens, and then the next thing happens, and, and you're throwing good money after bad, and maybe it's better just to buy a new car, but.
Not our money.
If I understand, the red integrity, over the next 10 years, this stuff is going to break.
This stuff exceeds its useful life. Again, it could last for another 10 years. This stuff is going to exceed its useful life.
Yes.
This is a very objective analysis of what could be happening,
But the blue is just going to be beyond its service life?
Yeah, so the red stuff is things that are like struggling. And then the blue is things that are probably look fine, but
within the next 10 years, they're going to go beyond their service life. But the red, we know, is already
struggling. Yeah. And one of the things I think to do too, to understand a part of that, looking at kind of maintaining your car, I love that now this we're going to talk about. So if you get $4 million from the county, you want to look and say, okay, we think that these 5 roofs they're going to exceed their useful life. We should do those this year. But maybe we can just replace some equipment in the pumps. Maybe we can just, redo something, repaint, or, you can start looking at that, like, what are the piecemeal things that we can do? Because you're not ever going to get enough money to do everything all at once, nor should you. It's crazy.
Clearly, we're not going to. But the 70% of integrity, is that common for what you see in other districts?
It is, because again, that's sort of how you see on facility condition assessments in general. Like, again, this is all things that we say are likely going to happen in 10 years. So how does it break down? It would be really bad if you saw that being skewed to life safety or something that was an emergency. But this is that's expected. It should be that way. I know.
The capital requests come in with a level 1, a 2, or a 3.
Yeah.
So we bring to you the things that are red or blue that are in danger zone. We automatically fix things that are in that life safety portion. So when you see that, you can equate that to this chart right here.
Okay. We can come back to that if you need to. So another way to break this down is FCA Tracker calls it region, but looking at it at types of schools. And I just thought this was some interesting information. Again, this is percentage of cost, not percentage of square footage, but I am going to talk a little bit about it. So elementary schools is about 34%. This is over the 10 years. Again, what is going to exceed its useful life needs to be replaced. So 34%, high schools 32%, middle schools 27%. So kind of third once you add all that up. But I did want to acknowledge that based on square footage, to go to that. So middle schools are only 21% of your square footage in the district, but they're 27% of need. High schools is 33% of square footage, 33% of need, okay. Elementary schools, 34% of need, 40%. So there's a little bit of discrepancy. That doesn't mean anything. I like sort of data information, but having, addressing middle schools, they're bigger. I have a 12-year-old, so I know that they're a little bit more chaotic children. And so that might be, again, something to focus on. But again, this is just data, but I thought it was interesting. If you saw a huge swing at high schools and everything was great at elementary schools, that might mean that you had just replaced a whole bunch of elementary schools, and now we're going to high school. So, and then looking at it, again, deferred maintenance versus future capital. I just wanted you to see how those dollars break down. So deferred maintenance now, if you got a check right now from the county, you could spend $176 million fixing everything, just for reference. So that first year of numbers always looks high because we're capturing so much of the things that are already past their useful life. But then looking past that over the 10 years, the rest of that is future. Things that you would want to replace as you were going along in your capital plan. And again, that doesn't mean that there's $176 million of things that are broken and not functioning. It just means that there are things that should have been done last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, in a replacement sense. So again, just pointing that out. All right, so to your question about the FCI and how it breaks down into the schools. So there are 17 schools or 17 locations of the 49 that we looked at that are in that critical to fair right now, currently, that are in that critical to fair category. That, again, to just reemphasize, that doesn't reflect educational suitability operational safety. They might have offices in the middle of the buildings, and we did not put anything about that. That's a different type of capital planning. And then, but if, looking at it again, if you wait 20 years and don't do anything, 44 of your 49 locations are in critical to fair. So you have, so that, again, it emphasizes the need that there's got to be capital spending in order to keep things from going. Yes, ma'am? 20.
Within 20.
Within 20, thank you, yeah, that's right. Within 20 years, 44 of those 49 locations are critical to fair. And it's the same thing as if your house. If you don't do anything to your house for 20 years, same thing. I mean, this is natural. Like, I don't want you all to feel like, you know, that you're in a world of hurt. There are needs for sure. There's always needs, but this helps you establish a plan. Okay, and so just one more breakdown too for how the deferred maintenance, the current deferred maintenance breaks down. And this should be no surprise. The blue is HVAC. That's always, it's the most expensive, so it's always a big chunk. The red there is low voltage. Again, that's IT systems, that sort of thing. Lighting is $4 million. And parking, that's replacing parking lots. And then you can kind of see it. So roofing is $3.3 million. And then it goes around site, electrical, and through there. But again, the big chunk of the current need, and again, that happens all the time, is HVAC. All right. That's the end of the slides that I have, but happy to go back to something or answer any more questions about how this is.
I was just curious because we have identified bond projects to go on this year's bond, and so seeing the red is never a good thing, but are we able to get a breakdown, and maybe not right this moment, but of the 70% of the concern with integrity issues over the next 11 years, how many of our bond identified projects would make up that 70%?
So I did look at that, and all of the bond projects are in that. Some of the bond projects are actually
Can you say that again louder and slower?
Yes, all of the bond projects are in that 10-year identified need. I do also want to acknowledge that some of the bond projects are really critical because they're DDC control upgrades. That's not something that we would look at because we don't necessarily say you've got bad controls. That's what controls the building systems. That's an upgrade that will help your equipment last longer. It'll be more functional. So that's a critical need. But again, to some of the stuff we've talked about, not necessarily a replacement cost because the equipment turns on and turns off. But once you put in those controls upgrades, which are expensive and are very often bond funded, you are enhancing the system in a way that makes it much more functional for both maintenance and occupants. So some of the projects are not in here on that list, but the ones that are replacing chillers, boilers, the window units, that kind of stuff, those are all in part of that.
If I could just add one more thing, if you look at the slide here, you can see why our focus was primarily for the HVAC systems when we were looking at the bond.
Cooling a high school with window units is never really efficient.
All right, so we have access to that software so we can drill down and on to?
As of right now, we're still getting all that ourselves. We kind of think to assess that at a later time. We just need to get trained on it first, and then we can show you guys how to access it if you want.
Yes. Now, your company, is it mainly concerned with schools, districts here in North Carolina? Is that where you do the bulk of yours, or all of your work?
So my group does work here in North Carolina, North and South Carolina, but we are a national company, actually a global. Turner & Townsend is a global project management, project controls company. And like I said, here he has been doing project management and program management with schools here in North Carolina and the country for a long time. So
Your group that did this,
they are, yes, they are
using for reference from the beginning.
That's correct.
Comparing us across the state.
Yeah, and we're not comparing you to anybody else. We're comparing you to you. But the numbers we use, those replacement cost numbers and the current replacement value, are based on costs that we're seeing here in North Carolina.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We're going up.
I'd just like to say thanks to the board for the opportunity to present this. It's a lot of information, and they and our teams, our staff have spent a lot of time going through our building. So I just want to say thank you, and thank you, Jessica, Ms. Killian, for being here today.
Yep, absolutely.
This is excellent work. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, yeah. Good luck with everything. Yeah.
Hold on, what did you mean by that?
I mean, good luck. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, this is exciting, and I'll just wrap it up. This is really exciting, and this is important information to do. I know it costs money, but it's really important for you all to get a handle on it because it's black and white, it's data. It's not opinions of, oh, my classroom's too hot, or, this isn't working. Like, it's just there, and it helps support to the county, to your community, to everybody. So again, yeah.
Being reactive always costs more.
Yes,
And
it
this helps us
absolutely does.
to not be reactive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They're proactive.
So thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Thank you again. Next on our agenda, we have,
Well, yeah, you may make the motion to take a 5-minute break before we begin a whole business.
I swear, that's where I taught students taught back in the 80s in Hanover County.
They look the same
It
then.
looks the same, air conditioner's still in there, they didn't work then. Really, that's what students talk about, really.
ahead and carry on with Ms. Justice. We do have I just was alerted that we have an emergency that we need to add for next week. So we will be adding under consensus, Ms. Barnum. Share with us exactly what we have to add.
Yes, it's IntelliChoice. I need to make a contract amendment for our one-to-one nursing and certified nursing assistant contract. I've been alerted that we have an increased need, and we need to increase that contract to get through the end of the school year. I have the funds, I just need to make sure that that amendment comes through the board.
Okay, and IntelliChoice?
IntelliChoice.
IntelliChoice. I'll make a motion that we add IntelliChoice to our consensus items under letter N. And we have a second? Okay, any discussion?
Do we now need to look at next week's time again?
No, because it's still under consensus.
Okay.
We're adding IntelliChoice. Ms. Barnum, would you share again, because Dr. Merrick just came? I can go ahead.
Yes, I'm adding IntelliChoice, the IntelliChoice contract. It has been approved by the board in the past. I need to have an amendment approved as I'm increasing the dollar amount on there in order to provide additional services, one-to-one nursing services or CNA services to our students for the remainder of the school year.
Right. I think so. Mr. Perry?
How much extra?
I've got that.
How much extra money?
I've got that dollar amount coming into me. I just know it's above 300,000, so I need to make sure, and it's already been approved once. I just need to make sure I get the amendment done, but I'll send you that information.
Okay.
Well, and if we need to next week, we can pull it back off. But we have a motion and a second to add IntelliChoice under letter N. All in favor, and we do need a supermajority at this point. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. That passes 7-0, so we'll be added. Yes, ma'am.
So that we can look at it before the meeting?
Yes, and I will also get it posted as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Okay, we will carry on with our business for today. Next, we have the recommended, very, very important business of today. 26-27 recommended budget. Ms. Sutton.
So you have at your desk a copy of the same presentation that's online. So we'll just go through that.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to start with.
I don't believe we have one. Right here?
I think I have an extra.
But I've seen it in my notes. I have yesterday's notes too, so keep yours. I still have yesterday's.
Wait a minute, you got one coming around. Pepper. All right, everybody's got one now. Now we're good.
All right. So we'll start with our revenue that were included in our initial budget, this recommendation. I did want to point out to the group that the total budget you see here is less than the number that you're used to seeing for our total budget, like when we were doing our budget listening tours. And that's because we don't have all of our state and federal planning numbers yet. Some budgets we are able to estimate, but we also have some federal funding, especially, that we're not able to estimate because the funding that we receive is based on, for example, low-income students and how we rank compared to the other counties within the state. So when we are in that type of situation and we're not sure what that revenue is going to be, we usually just hold that off until we have a better idea of what that revenue will look like. And then at that point, we would bring that to the board for approval through a budget amendment, is what that would be. And so as you can see here, this budget that we are recommending is $333 million in total with all the different funding sources. Remember, this does include for the In other revenue, that number does include a reduction that makes up the one-time funding for the FEMA reimbursement that we received this year. You know, we're not going to have that next year. And then also the sale of the 13.4 acres over at Johnson. So those two revenues are included in other revenue as part of that reduction. And then the remaining, or another big chunk, I guess, of that reduction is carryover that we will bring back to the board as well. So grants and donations, where we received a set amount in the current fiscal year 2025, 2026, you're seeing that those amounts in that column, but you're not seeing them in next year's column because we don't know what that carryover is going to be yet. And so that would come back. So that's why you see such a big difference for the other revenue row there.
And a lot of this should mirror the conversations we have had already, so this should be review for most of you guys.
Right. And this does include a 3%, as you can see there, a 3.1% increase from the county, and we'll go through that county request in a little bit more detail on another slide. In board policy, the board approves our budget by purpose function, and so we do have for here on this slide, we have it broken out by purpose for you, and as you would expect, 70% of our budget is for instructional services, and 21.3% is for system-wide support services, and then you have a small amount making up the other areas, as you can see there. This budget does include, and we've talked about before, raises of 3%, retirement increase of 1%, health insurance increase of 5%, and then also some inflationary increases for like contracts, software increases, those type things. Now, I wanted to spend a little bit more time talking about the local revenue, our general fund, and we've broken it down a little more here for you. This is a slide you've seen in the past. Once again, the non-reoccurring is your FEMA reimbursement and the sale of some of those acres over at Johnson. We have increased fines and forfeitures based on the additional revenue that's come in this year over what we had budgeted, so we feel comfortable with that increase. The 3.1% increase, $3.1 million increase for the county operating. So if you're just looking at the county operating, it is a 3% increase. And I will show you on another slide how we got 1.3 on that first. This is only operating revenue that we received from the county. This budget also includes adding a new fee for student technology, and then also moving where we've got 2 of our pre-K classrooms so that we would be eligible to charge NC pre-K for reimbursement.
I'd like to break that one down in a little more detail for everyone because it does involve a shift. Currently, we have NC Pre-K is our main funding source for pre-K. We bill for certain kids at a certain rate. We currently have 4 classrooms in our district that are not compatible with pre-K, NC Pre-K certification. That is 2 classrooms at Blair and 2 classrooms at Murrayville. Those 4 classrooms make up about $300,000, of which we need to spend from another source to balance that out. So that's money that doesn't go to our K-12 students. This recommendation includes moving 2 of the 4 classrooms over to Johnson or Howe so that we can then bill those students from NC Pre-K because those rooms are certified. Now, this is a short-term plan because this year is our opportunity to certify rooms in all buildings that we choose to. So Dr. Morgan and Dr. Keflanitis are working to isolate which rooms we want to add to our certification so that we have more flexibility later on. These 4 rooms we know will qualify. However, until they certify the rooms, we can't use them. In addition, do you want to stop for questions? Then there's more, so I'll stop right now and then go back.
I have a question, right? I'm going to go first for a change. The 3-year-olds, they don't count either way, is that correct, or do they count?
That was coming up next, so I'll include this and then you can go to the questions.
Okay.
So NC Pre-K does not pay for any 3-year-olds. Now, some students who receive special education services are in our pre-K program at 3 because they are receiving services equating to the cost that we can bill for.
Okay. And now we'll have questions. I'll start over here to the right and go around. Okay.
I'm trying.
Questions. I had a question about the technology.
Let's stick with the pre-K for now.
Let's do the pre-K and then
And then come back.
We'll come back to you. Okay. Any
No,
pre-K
I'm
questions?
listening. Everybody.
Oh,
Mayor?
yeah, I'm sorry. I do, thank you, because, we've had a bunch of letters. Parents, this is, I understand $178,000. If we were to continue on, we'd have to find that somewhere else. That's a couple of teachers' salaries. That's not a small amount of money. Boy, it breaks my heart to listen to the parents who say, I have one kid going from pre-K into kindergarten and another child that's going to go into pre-K, but now we have to take them to another school, and and I understand all that. Okay, but I guess what I'm saying this more for the people listening than anything else, that if the state gave us, as you've mentioned, if the state gave us even the average amount that a state gives us, we would have $100+ million more dollars, and this would not be a conversation at all. But I do want to tell those parents how difficult a conversation this is to have, that we're going to ask them to have to go to another school and then come back later. It's really not optimal, but at the same time, I feel like our hands are tied. $178,000, that's two more teachers that we would have to let go. So.
Now, if I can fill in, do you want to ask first? Okay.
Thank you. I do want to point out, we are taking the steps so that we can make pre-K sustainable. And so currently, we have not done that as a district. So being able to have rooms certified, more rooms certified, means that we can serve more children. And that is our goal. And so the idea and concept of potentially moving a program short-term, you said 1 year.
As long as the certification goes through, they will be certifiable in the next school year.
So it is our goal for New Hanover County to certify these rooms so that we can maintain high-quality pre-K education and continuing to serve spots. And so my concern that I brought up in our one-on-ones, or I think there was 3 of us this last time of going over the budget, was this. Are we able to maintain the spots that we have for our students and keep our staff? And the answer that was told to me was yes. And so we're able to still serve children, the same number that we're serving, and keep our staff. Is that a correct statement?
It is, if I can qualify it just a little.
Okay.
So by moving those students and being able to bill for those groups of students, we will receive back that $178,000. Now, one question we ask is, why don't you move all 4 rooms instead of just 2? There are currently 3-year-olds at Blair and Murrayville who are already in our pre-K program this year. It is less invasive to those kids to allow them to stay in that same building where they're already comfortable in planning. So last count, there were 13 3-year-olds turning 4 at Blair and 8 at Murrayville, and I may have that number reversed. That's not a full classroom either. So our next bid is to provide an opportunity for students who have sibling privilege. So if I have 7 slots or 6 slots or 5 slots or whatever still open, and you have another kid at that school, we will try to accommodate sibling privilege when we can. I know that this is disruptive to move 2 rooms and move them back, and I would love to say that we're not in a budget place where $178,000 is the deal breaker, but it took us weeks. That's why this budget is coming to you a little later. It took us weeks to balance this budget to a place where it stands on its own. And it's numbers like 178 that are actually critical in the process. So, not going to damage kids who are already at Blair and Murrayville, 3 or 4-year-olds. We'll try to accommodate sibling privilege, and the plan would be to move those students back. Now, that is just to maintain the number of slots that we have. Increasing slots, right now we are inviting every 4-year-old who qualifies to come. We have not invited 3-year-olds at this point in time because I need to reserve as many spots as I can for 4-year-olds who can be billed to NC Pre-K. Now, I will tell you, if NC Pre-K didn't pay for only 47% of what a kid requires, then the slot conversation becomes a little more malleable. But even out of the gate, we're only getting half of what it costs, and the rest of that money has to come from somewhere. So thank you.
Yes.
And I echo what Ms. Barnes said. This is going to put us, this is a long-term solution to make it more sustainable. And I didn't understand what the certification of the classroom was. It's not an educational certification. It's physical, bathroom, sink, hot water, outside door. So that's going to improve our classrooms and our buildings that are elementary schools. So it's just going to set a better track for the future as we continue to plan for the future, which hasn't been done in this district in so darn long.
There's a licensing requirement. In addition, to maintain a 5-star rating, we have all the requirements that go with it. But, so it's to certify those rooms.
Let's go back to Mr. Perry for his question.
Yeah, this is regarding the student technology fee. So I know when we had our little discussion with you, I raised some concerns about that at the time. You've got, as it was presented to us, to be one fee, which is pretty much set for all of our students across all grade levels. But, I mean, there are different, you've got elementary school kids who are probably maybe using a shared computer once in a while, paying the same thing that a high school kid is paying to have a one-to-one device, which doesn't seem like it's quite fair. Also, I also have a problem with, if it's a nice to have, if it enhances education, I could see charging the student technology fee to help us reimburse the cost for that. But if it's something that's required, if you have to use this device in order to pass your classes, then I got sort of an ethical problem while charging parents for the kids to use the device that they have to use. They're already paying taxes, so.
Back in the day, did they ever charge for textbooks?
For what?
There wasn't a textbook fee? I know there's in college there's a textbook fee, but I can't remember any further back. And what is this fee per child, and what's the caveat on the lunch?
$25, it would not be billed to students who are free or reduced lunch.
I'd like to take that, but I would just go to a revised.
And that is what the board has, that's why I'm bringing it to you, that's why I brought it to you a couple of weeks ago. If you choose to take that out, what I will then do is have to cut something to balance that budget back again.
I would wonder if it would suit the board if these things that are variables, if we go ahead and have if we're ready to vote on those things now, so he's prepared when he comes next week with a different budget if he needs a different budget, rather than just stall it out until next week. The pre-K and the student technology fees and whatever else is in here that's a variable we're going to have to vote on if we're prepared, rather than wait till the very last minute and miss that May 5th date because we're already 2 weeks behind of what we did.
I don't know if you vote on the things individually, or if I bring you the budget, you just either vote it up or down. I'm not sure.
Or we give you an indication of how we would vote, or, in favor of or not.
Do you know how that works?
So in the past, if there was something the board agreed to add or take away, I do seem to remember that it was voted on, and based on the vote of the board, then we would adjust the budget based on that change.
Which I think is what we did when we met last time, as I took all your feedback and only put things in here that were 5 or 6,
right,
universally wanted, or only 1 to 7.
There really wasn't a change based on what we talked about before.
Yeah.
Then we'll answer the questions, and then we'll go to the justice.
Well, I'm just trying to take all this in now. Last minute changes, which is why we're here, or not even changes, just discussion. So at this point, the question was whether we are voting now on those 2 topics,
Yeah, these are the things that we covered in the one-to-ones with the superintendent a couple weeks ago.
And we filled out little forms, and I think you took the average, the plus average, and then put it on the final budget request. So, in a sense, we did it then, but we did it more informally. So you're saying that maybe we should be formally doing it now? Is that what the question is?
I think the question is, if, because it was raised by another member of the board, that they objected to one of the things, that instead of waiting until next week, you vote on the whole budget.
Right.
And then if we had, say, four people, obviously not three, but four people say, no, I don't like it the way it is, instead of trying to scramble at the last minute to do it, that we would, be able to say, well, it's that, that.
And there's two items.
Yeah.
And we only have 2 items that are in play, is that right?
Those are the only two things that are new that we consider, that we needed to add in to balance ourselves out.
Dr. Merritt.
Well, they're not the only ones that were on that list of 10 or 12 things that we were looking at, right? There's the OT, PT change, there's the EC AIDS increase, right?
It's on slide 6.
Oh, sorry.
We're still working on it.
But, so the question I really have, though, is that whether we take some of these out or put them back in, I've watched a couple of cycles here. I know that the money comes in, it's not what we thought, it's more, it's less, and there's always some jockeying for position. And I just want to know that those issues that we've brought, if any of those get cut, they'd be the first ones to be put back in.
If you will wait till slide 5, I think you'll have an answer to that question.
Okay, I shut up now and let you go to slide 4 or 5.
And so I think, overall, yeah, I was just going to say, I would recommend that we wait until we get through this whole thing, and then if we need to, if we want to say, well, we have enough angst about, well, I guess right now the student technology fee, then maybe we should vote and rough hand. Yes, ma'am?
Do we have to have a motion for that?
Well,
We're gonna do it when we're
I
done.
think, let's go ahead and get done. Let's hear all what Ms. Sutton has to, and Dr. Barnes have to present, and then we'll go ahead and go.
Okay. And so this slide, I just wanted to go into a little more detail for the county request, since that is a separate letter that we will, if approved by the board, we will send to the county, which is submitting our official request from them for next year. So as you can see here, our recommendation would be to request that 3% increase for our operating appropriation from the county, and that's the $3.1 million. We would also ask for a 3% increase for pre-K program. That's $31,000. Once again, that's just, salaries, benefits, inflationary type things for that program. And then the capital appropriation request would be the $2.8 million. That's the same capital request that the board approved previously. That's the same amount, but it is an increase compared to prior year of that $368,000. So when you add all those changes together, it is a little over 3%. It's 3.1% when you look at all three of those types of requests together. I did break down in the bottom inflationary, meaning contracts increases, software increases, supply increase, those type of things, and charter school payments that are included in this budget make up about $328,000 of the increase. The people investment, for that I'm including raises and benefit increases, is right at $2.2 million. Pre-K program, the $31,000 we just talked about, in capital. So that's how you get that $3.3 million altogether. Are there any questions about the county request? Yes.
I just want to go to the pre-K there. We are getting $1 million in pre-K funding if they approve this budget. We're requesting that $1 million there, and it's $31,000 more for pre-K.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Here's kind of your voting slide.
Right.
So to get us to balanced, we have added the two things that are at the top. We went from a $16 million operating budget request down to just these 3 items. These are the 3 items that I had to take out to get us to balance. However, I feel like in conversations with the board and with our staff and principals, these are critical areas. And that is to make sure that we stop sharing assistant principals at our elementary school, to reclassify special education teacher assistants from a 57 to a 59, and provide a supplement for OT and PT. Now, our intention is to send our recommendation to the county requesting a 3% increase in our operating budget, 3.1. We also want to share with them that these three things are what we consider of critical importance. And I want the public to know that any revenue that we generate other than what we expect, these are the first three things that we will address with it. And at that point, as I've always done before, if we find we have additional revenue that we didn't expect, we will bring that to the board with a recommendation of where to allocate it. But we want to be clear that these are the first three things on our list.
Dr. Merritt?
I heard you say, I think it was just, you kind of went over it a little bit, but you said a 3.1 operating increase, and I think it's a 3% operating increase plus that 0.1, which is actually capital.
No, that's
So
pre-K.
in total, the total county request is an increase of 3.1. That includes our operating, pre-K, and capital.
Okay.
If you just look at operating by itself, it's 3%.
Okay, because I want the public to know that we didn't say 2.3 to 3, we didn't go to 3.1, we're still at 3.
Correct.
There's
Yeah.
other things that we're asking
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I asked, based on our conversation yesterday with Representative Davis, I asked Ashley a question this morning, and she answered me. And it has to do with, you've built into this budget a 3% raise for teachers, correct?
For all staff.
All staff, excuse me. And what happens if it goes to 10 or 11 or 8? So I wanted to know the dollar value in 1% increases of what that would be. And we have 652 local staff that are paid locally, and we would have to pick up the tab for that. It's $845,000 for every 1% increase. So if it goes to 4%, we'd have to pick up another 845. Yeah, 845. If it goes to 2%, twice that. 3%, $2.5 million. So where would we get that? That's just something that's looming over my head, and I think it's a number that we should all know as we watch. Sure, I want 11%, I want 8%, I want 5%, but we're budgeted at 3, and this is how much it's going to hurt us if they mandate that higher amount.
So we baked in a 3% raise for all employees, specifically, especially because most of our employees did not get a raise last year. I'm going to the state tomorrow. It would be a statewide issue if the state decided to do a 10% or 8% raise. Every county would be required to make up that differential. No one, when they build their budget, builds in an 8% raise, because that sets an expectation that's unreasonable. If we get a raise higher than 3%, we will have to make cuts in our population, in our student-facing population, to balance that.
Ms. Barnhart?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Looking at all these, a couple of things that I brought up when we had our superintendent office hours was specifically with technology. Our younger kids, K2 in particular, we can reevaluate if it's necessary to have technology use at all, if I'm just being blunt. Looking at shared opportunities for specials classes and things like that, of how we can reduce that and still have access. So I wanted to publicly state that. And these three things give me heart palpitations of not including the recommendations, the assistant principals, the classification for ECTAs, and the OTPT salary, because maintaining services is extremely important. And so one of the things when we were discussing different opportunities, and I know we all had the opportunity to share our feedback of where movement could happen or could not happen based on our opinions. The one thing that I said to you and to my colleagues who were in my group, I guess, was that whatever changes we do, we need to make sure that we're continuing the services with fidelity, whatever that looks like. And so if we're able to adjust and accommodate in one area, and pre-K is a prime example. It's how can we maintain the services of pre-K in a different way that we're currently doing. I don't like the movement, if I'm just being blunt. However, in order for us to service these children, it's a necessary step to provide those slots. So therefore, I understand and will accept that. And so there was a couple of conversations we had of some changes. So I'm going to ask it publicly. Are we able to make any changes of how we are currently operating, still maintaining services for students? Can we do things in a different format than what we're currently doing so that we can build one of these three or all of these three back into our budget?
So, and what I needed to do was what a lot of places will do is called a zero-based budget, where you budget for maintaining our lives as they are with the cost of benefits increases and raises and things like that. There were several options that we had the availability to do, which is sort of maybe recalibrating how we offer services in certain areas, whether that's enrichment, whether that's AIG services, whether that's resource time, all those different things. There are ways that we can review and recalibrate and try to bring this money in. Because there are so many variables that aren't known yet, which is we don't already have all of our planning numbers yet.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of conversation with the state about increasing the cap on special education
We've seen
services.
changes, yeah.
I don't want to make any violent shifts if I think that we may end up, these three things alone are about $500,000. Am I in the ballpark?
That's right.
So these three things alone, that's not a huge lift. So I'm hoping that those things may come to us from another fashion without having to recalibrate other things.
Okay.
Does that make
Thank
sense?
you. It absolutely makes sense, because I think that was the other thing that our group had a discussion of, is the TRDC funding formula, I think, would be able to knock out these last two items.
The two and three for sure, yeah.
To be able to be included as the recommendation, just not coming from a local source, it would be from the state.
Right.
So I appreciate you bringing that to light, because that was also a conversation that we had in our group.
And that was actually you who brought that to me.
I have 2 points, actually. The first is that, and I hear what my colleague is saying across the way around what we might be in for if the state does decide to agree, well, if they pass a budget at all, but if they do that, and if they decide to give a teacher's raise, which I really hope they do, we need them, right? What I don't want our conversation here to sound like to the teachers and to the public is that, oh gosh, we hope that the teachers don't get raises, right?
No,
we know,
no.
and I know you don't believe that, but we have to be careful the way we discuss it, right? We will have to be ready to make some huge pivots if the teachers do get the raises they desperately need.
Correct.
Second
And I will
point.
tell you, it's as important to address the plateau in the teacher schedule as it is to increase teacher salary.
I agree. That 15 to 25 years is just unbelievable. The second thing I would like to ask you to explain a little bit better for the public is when we say $500,000, that's not the end of the world. That's not too heavy a lift. And then we say 178,000, that's too much. So I just would love you to be able to kind of bring those two things back into balance.
Sure. I think, and it lends itself to something else I wanted to say as well. Conversation came out, and there was a news story the other day about why we only brought 3% to the county for our ask. I want to be clear, I have always made it very clear that we are at a subsistence level with what we can provide. However, we are also required to be good stewards of the money that we are given. And in the same year that we are going to ask this community to fund a $320.5 million bond, this 3% could have easily been 4, it could have easily been 6. However, we need to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible. Do I think this is the year to build on where this school system is going? Yes, but I think the bond will do that. So I don't want to burden our taxpayers twice. Also, in conversation with our county commissioners, we've also been talking about the fact that our enrollment has decreased and their funding has gone up every year. I think we need to balance that as well. Are our needs there? Yes. But that's why we're going to Raleigh. That's why we're addressing things with our legislators, because we know that it's a balance. At the same time, we need to be as responsible as possible. And I think you said it, Ms. Barnhart, look for ways to look at how we're delivering services to make sure we're being as fiscally responsible as we can. And that, of course, is why you guys talked about that 10-year sort of sustainability plan to make some long-term decisions for this district. And I think that the county's been very responsive to that. So if the public says we should have asked for more, I'm trying to balance about what's fair, what's responsible, and how we can move this district forward.
So just to keep going with that, what I'm hearing you say, I'm just trying to clarify for everybody, is that the 178,000, although in itself might not be a huge lift, for us not to make that change is to say we're being a little bit irresponsible in how we're arranging our classrooms. And no, I don't like it that certain families are now having to be burdened, but the fact of the matter is we have people on the waiting list. And so, we will fill those classrooms. It's not like we're suddenly kicking parents out of the system.
And we're allowing every child who's currently in those buildings to stay there. So I don't think shifting them is not necessarily the burden. I think that if you were already invested in that building, you stay there. And as much as we can, if you have an older sibling in that same school, we'll do what we can to keep you there too.
Mr. Perry?
When we had our little budget session with you and all, one of the things that I don't know how everybody else voted, but I was, and it seemed to add up pretty close numerically, is that if we were to get rid of the AIG teacher positions at our high schools, they could just about equate to the 3 additional assistant principals that we want. And from my understanding, not that AIG isn't important, but in the high school thing is typically something more that could be done from the school counselor's office, and that's what was explained to me. I voted for that. I don't know how everybody else felt about it, but I think it's a little more important to make sure that we've got an assistant principal in every single school.
Again, because, sorry. And correct me if I'm wrong, Ashley, because we still have some unknowns in our funding that's coming in, I didn't want to make sort of not violent, but rash decisions without knowing whether or not. Now, if the budget comes in under we expect, or something we don't expect happens and we don't get as much money, these things we may not be able to do them. But because there's still some unknowns, I didn't want to make any rash decisions until I knew where all the money was going to come in yet. Right? So the check's been written, but it hasn't been mailed. So I didn't want to make any real significant changes until we know those things, if that makes sense.
And just one of the points, I've been studying this pre-K since last Tuesday, because it was really agonizing me, and I read every one of those letters. And you're talking about one classroom at Blair, one classroom at Murrayville, up to 18 kids in each class. So that's, if my math is right, it's 36 possible kids that would have a different placement, but they'd still get pre-K, and it would still be in a quality setting. So we have to balance that against, in 2 years, where we would be if we make these changes. And at the same time, the teacher and the teacher assistant, they pick up the whole classroom and they move it. So we're not affecting teachers and teachers' assistants. The kids get the same, the incoming kids will get the same teachers and so on. And I know it's tough for those handful of people, under 40 people, that are going to be affected by it, or could be affected by it. But if we certify those classrooms, we bring everything back in a year, we're in a better position then than we are now. We have to continue to look for the future and not do a quick fix. We have to. So as much as it pains me, I guess I've made up my mind.
Okay, so that's all that I have for you. That's my last slide. So we'll be glad to hear any feedback if there's any adjustments that we need to make. Otherwise, this is what we would recommend next week.
One thing that we
Could you go back one slide?
Yes.
Please.
To 6?
Nope. Oh, I'm just teeing you up.
Okay, yeah.
Go, 5.
So the one thing I think we have discussed is the student technology fee. And I think the board needs to, I think it makes sense that, to be able to discuss that now, and then we can discuss it again maybe more for next week, but that way we can actually have, you can, if there is, yeah, if there has to be a movement, we can do it. So, Mr. Perry, you actually brought up, so why don't you start, please?
Yeah, so my concern is that it needs to be a straight fee regardless of grade level, but the services that they're actually, the technology they're actually using varies dramatically from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade. So we're charging things, anything from, we're sharing, one computer in a kindergarten class for something okay, now I've got a high school student with a one-to-one device with a lot of expensive software on it. So, so I don't think it's necessarily fair from that perspective that you're charging, a kid who's only sharing a computer the same amount that you're charging a kid who's got their own with a bunch of software on it. That's great. But then the other thing is like how much, and this is probably where I will need help, is how much of this technology is required, for them to actually complete their schoolwork. And I mean, if it's optional, okay, go ahead and charge the technology fee. But if it's required, I mean, taxpayers pay taxes so they can send their kids to school. We shouldn't be charging them extra fees if it's a required thing. If it's a nice to have, if it's an optional thing that'll improve their thing, sure, go ahead and charge them an extra fee. But if it's required for them to use this computer in order to pass their classes, I got a problem with asking our taxpayers to throw out some additional fees.
Ms. Mason?
So I know Mr. Perry was not in my group, but I believe in our group we talked about the other counties are doing this fee. So my question would be, how did they do it? Do they kind of stagger it or alter it or do any kind of adjustments with that? And then just kind of wanted to make a point as far as with the younger kids, they're not sharing laptops, they have iPads, correct?
K2, yes.
And it's one-to-one. They each have,
No,
that are in the classroom?
They're in the classroom.
But they're on a cart? Gotcha.
If it helps to look at it a different way, this technology fee would offset the cost of the insurance it costs to fix the laptops when they're broken by those same children. So, is it a balance point? Yeah. Are there less iPads, but do kindergarten kids drop them more than a high schooler? So there's a range of things, and we're moving towards a cart system in middle school so we can reduce that damage. But if you think of it in that way, this is to offset the insurance of fixing them when the students break them.
Dr. Merrick?
Well, from a very idealistic standpoint, I agree with my member to the right. Free and accessible public education, right? They shouldn't have to pay anything for this. However, we are not in a situation to be able to offer a quality education without having to take some strong choices here. I would be totally against this if every family that was on free and reduced lunch had to pay a fee. $20, $25? $25 seems probably pretty reasonable for what a family can handle. Now, if you've got 4 kids in school, that's $100. Still, it's over an entire year. I don't like it. Maybe this is one thing that will get our families to be able to say, hey, you know what? Why the heck are we having to pay for this? Let's talk to our legislator. Let's talk to our county commission. Let's talk to our government elected officials and do something about this. Because why should I have to pay $100? And so I think for a short-term budget reconciliation, I think it's reasonable, and I would vote for it.
Ms. Justice?
Well, I was basically going to say the same thing. In the ideal world, then public schools are paid for with public funds. But right now, we're not in an ideal world. We're the 50th in the nation with our public funding, which is heartbreaking. And our county commissioners, it looks like they're going to do a great job because they're talking about doing the 3%, which we desperately need. I would be willing to pay, $25 is like, you know, a meal at McDonald's for a whole year with 1 or 2 kids. It's not in a perfect world, but it's a reasonable world. That's what we have to do right now. And as Dr. Merrick, my colleague to the left here, pointed out, maybe this will get parents to pay more attention to what's going on in our schools as far as the fact that we are woefully underfunded.
Thank you. Ms. Bradford?
I've been saying for a couple of years, we're going to have to learn to do less with less. This is one of those examples. And we're not alone as a county. All the other counties, and from what I can read all over the country, they're facing the same crises, you know, with education and the costs going up and up and up, and the services, you know, having to be cut in order to make balanced budgets. So for me, I agree. If it wasn't free and reduced lunch excluded, then I wouldn't want to do it. But I think that $25 for the technology to make sure that, you know, when you drop it, I dropped mine this morning. I didn't mean to, but I dropped it. And I'm really glad that it's hardy. No, this is one hardy little machine, trust me. And so I will be in favor of it.
Okay. Ms. Barnhart?
So kind of what I'm hearing from the discussion is it's not necessarily a fee to use the computer, but it's the insurance to use the computer. I mean, and so that's what I'm gathering from this conversation. I mean, we have been able to help secure more funding year after year after year, and we're going to continue that trend. We are seeking other options of funding sources and allocations. So we just don't know where grant asks and endowment asks and state where they're going to come in at. And so I think there's an opportunity to reconsider this, but it sounds like rather than a fee to use the technology is the insurance to use the technology. Is that is that a fair assessment from what I'm hearing, or is that not fair from what I'm hearing? Because it's not a fee to get the computer to do the work. We're going to provide technology if the teacher requires technology, because that's our job, right? It's more the securing the insurance of the computer.
Princeton?
Yes, it's to cover the repair cost, you know, the getting parts and stuff, and the insurance for it is not cheap, so it's to cover the repair cost of the devices.
Okay, so at this point, I think we have Mr. Perry.
I just want to make one final comment before we go. You know, I know everybody thinks maybe if I got 3 kids, $25 doesn't sound like what they want, but the opposite. For some people who are working, who maybe I qualify for free or reduced lunch, $75 if they got 3 kids is a big deal. And I just want people to keep that in mind when they vote. That's all.
Okay. All right, so basically we have 2 options. I think the only thing we're discussing, unless somebody else would like to discuss the moving the 2 pre-K classrooms, we're going to be discussing the student technology fee, and we can just have a yay or nay, unless, you know, so basically a yay would be we agree that we put the student technology fee of $25 per student in with, you know, except with exclusion, of course, of anyone who's free and reduced lunch. And then, on the other side, a nay would be that we'd like you to come up with another option. Okay? Ms. Bowie, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Mason?
Yes.
Ms. Justice?
Yes.
Ms. Bradford?
Yes.
Dr. Merrick?
Yay.
Mr. Wildebohr?
Yay.
Mr. Perry?
No.
And Ms. Barnhart?
No.
Okay, so that passes 5-2. So then we can go on with this budget as... Sir?
One other thing. Can we take what did everybody else say, Dr. Barnes, in regards to the AIG versus TA? Was I the only one who was for swapping them, or?
For swapping the AIG teachers for the student technology?
No, the AIG for the assistant principals.
People were split on that. It wasn't enough either direction.
Can we take that to a vote?
If you'd like to make a motion.
I can make a
I thought we were
motion.
voting on all of these.
Yeah, these aren't on there.
We're
They're
doing
not
it
on
in
the
2
budget.
parts.
Yeah, I thought the only thing that we had discussed...
AIG is on the budget now, is it not?
I'm sorry?
AIG is on the budget now, is it?
I've made no changes to the AIG budget at this point.
Good.
So I guess the question I'm hearing you raise is, can we swap 3 assistant principals for 3 or 2? 3 AIG teachers. Right, can we bring that to vote if you want to? Yes, sir. That's Matt.
I think what I heard the superintendent say is when he said, I don't want to make any drastic changes. We may yet find the money to hire 3 assistant principals. It could happen. But if we decide against 3 AIG teachers, then we're going to have to send some people packing or rearrange them, and we don't want to do that if we are going to find that money.
We're also sort of getting, and you correct me if I'm wrong, sort of deeper into the weeds here. I'm bringing you a budget. The reason we spent so much time talking about it individually with you in small groups is so we wouldn't slow down the process when we got to this point. I would rather, since this is new and the AIG teachers are current, I'm concerned about then saying, we're going to have to repurpose you into a different job, and then if the money comes in a different way, then we turn around and say, oops, we were just kidding. I just am concerned about doing that without knowing the end result.
Well, that's what happened with our school nurses, right? And
Yeah, exactly.
back yet. That's not a good idea. Let's not make those changes if we can find the money for the new ones.
Okay,
That
so,
was my recommendation.
well, again, we have Mr. Perry. Would you like to make that motion? So let's go ahead and. Withdraw. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So I got an indication just a minute ago that the superintendent wanted us to vote on the last 3 in some capacity. I don't understand what we would vote on.
I think what I'm asking you guys to know is that as we move into next year's budget, I'm including these things in our letter to the commissioners. We are going to be watching for things like the EC budget to change, the state funding to change, the federal funding to come in differently, to talk with local. And if I can find that money, I think what I'm asking you guys to know is in the budget for next year, that these 3 things are your top priorities for me to do as soon as is humanly possible.
So do you want to vote on that then?
I guess I don't need you to vote on it, just I think you guys need to agree that those are the top 3.
And I would like to speak to this. I think, number one, I'm a huge proponent of all 3 of them, to be honest. But assistant principals, schools need an assistant principal, and I'll be honest, I can't say enough about assistant principals. Principals lean heavily on them, the staff leans, safety reasons, just a huge number. But the second one, the ECTAs, I mean, I've seen some folks that are just unbelievable, and just, I'll be honest, I can tell story after story of people going above and beyond on a regular basis, day in and day out, being spit on, everything, and just coming back with a smile on their face the next day. So, and then the OT and PT, I mean, just financially, if we don't have those folks, then we have to get them, a contract, and that's triple the cost of, so anyway.
A couple of other things to consider too. The state currently does not have a budget. If they come in with a raise that is less than 3%, then we have already budgeted 3%, and that money will then be used for something like this. Or what if they don't pass a budget until October and then say, well, we're not going to retroact it back to June? Then that money can be repurposed. So that's why there's enough in here. I guess what I need you to know is that Ms. Sutton, the senior staff, and I will continue to diligently pursue these 3 options for our staff. Is that accurate, Ms. Sutton?
That's correct. And of course, if additional revenue is identified, we would bring back through a budget amendment, and we would share what we were using those funds for.
Any other questions about the budget? So we're not voting on the budget
Mr.
today.
Chair, I would move that we recommend those 3 items as your top priorities as the money flows in a positive way. I could say that in a positive rather than a negative. That we make those the top 3 priorities, and we direct you that now, so you don't have to come back to us to ask us a second time. You can go ahead and move.
Well, I'm still going to bring it back to you guys and let you know anyway. But your vote next week will confirm all those things.
Okay.
We just wanted to make sure that we were in the right direction.
Okay,
That's
never
correct.
mind.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ms. Sutton.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you very much for all your hard work. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I also want to remind this group, there are 6 school districts that we know of right now that are in a negative fund balance this school year. This is the second year in a row that Ms. Sutton has maintained our fund balance where it is now.
Awesome. All right, next on our agenda is policy 2210, duties of officers. Why that's on there is I do have to give my fellow board members an apology. I messed up, and when I mess up, I raise my hand and say I messed up, and I did. I had forgotten we had changed the policy, and so we had met with one of our board members and handed a letter, and it says very clearly, I was reminded afterwards, that says very clearly that that's not a duty of the chair and vice chair anymore. It is now duty of the whole board. So I do apologize for that, and I would like to make a motion that we uphold and enforce the letter given to Mr. Perry on April 7th, 2026, with new dates and the consequences that was signed by both Ms. Mason and myself. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have first and second. Discussion. Mr. Perry?
I have one two-page statement. I have one two-page statement here, and if you'll allow me to finish it without interruption, I will have nothing further to say, and I'll let you deliberate amongst yourselves. I want the public to understand that we are here today because the peace offer I brought forward to my Republican colleagues has been rejected. I offered to fully and publicly apologize for my Facebook comment directed at Ms. Bradford and for my modern-day Pharisees Facebook post directed at all my Republican colleagues. All I asked was that similar public apologies be made by my Republican colleagues for the wrongful actions they took, which provoked me to make those social media statements. All Ms. Bradford had to do was to apologize for attacking my integrity at our April 1st meeting. All my other Republican colleagues had to do was to publicly admit that they should have heard me out completely before voting to change the Employee Benefits and Retention Committee to be an advisory committee. Apparently, my Republican colleagues are unwilling to do so. Some might say that for civility's sake, I should be the bigger man and unilaterally apologize anyways. However, while I would love our board to display more civility, I believe that transparency and speaking truth to power are sometimes the more important virtue to practice. Therefore, I stand by the essence of my social media statements. However, even though I am not going to be making any full apologies today, I still want to apologize for a few things. To Ms. Bradford, I want to apologize again for the wrongful actions I took towards you in 2022 that have seemingly led to your disdain of me. You sat next to me in court and supported me while I sued the prior school board for requiring that masks be worn by attendees of school board meetings. But when I was running the New Hanover County Republican Liberty Caucus and you were seeking our endorsement, I failed to look at my email and see your request to address our group via Zoom.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I'm so sorry. I did not want to interrupt, but this is going into history that has nothing to do with this letter. It is not about what we're doing today, and it's just dragging up the past in a way that continues to create division. I would like to be able to hear Mr. Perry's statement without going into the deep, dark past.
And I will rule that that is well taken. So please make it germane to the current letter that was handed to you folks.
All right. Finally, although I believe that you hadn't forgiven me for this, I should not have used profanity when remarking about you. So I want to apologize for that. And finally, I would like to apologize for including Mr. Wildeboer in my list of modern-day Pharisees posts. It is no secret that the local Republican Party establishment has hated me for quite some time, did what they could behind the scenes to see that I was not elected, and for the last 18 months have been doing what they can to bring me down. And I believe that includes pressuring the other 3 Republicans on this board to do what they could to make sure that I am unsuccessful. I want to finish my statement.
Mr. Chairman, this goes to motive of other, that is not appropriate. It goes
Let
to
me
motive
finish
of
my
others.
statement.
Mr. Chairman, I'm asking you to rule on that point of order.
I'm going to say it's not well received. Finish your statement.
And to make sure that I am unsuccessful. However, I don't believe Mr. Wildeboer was ever motivated to act in this manner towards me. My only critique of him is that he has often seemingly gone along with his fellow Republicans out of some sense of loyalty. Finally, this board is going to do what it wants regardless of what I say. However, if this board decides it must vote for some punitive action towards me today, I suggest a censure rather than removing me from committee assignments. Contrary to what you might think, serving on committees is not a privilege, but part of the job responsibilities we have as board members. When the voters elected Ms. Justice, Dr. Merrick, and myself to the school board in 2024, they fully expected that we would contribute to the school district by serving on committees as well as attending meetings of the whole board. If you were to remove me from committee assignments, it would be sending the message that your judgment of me is more important than their votes. Finally, we took the oath to uphold the U.S. Constitution when we were sworn in. That includes upholding the First Amendment. The proper reaction to free speech we don't like is not to punish it, but for more free speech. Censure is a form of collective free speech that will allow you to condemn what I have said online without violating my First Amendment free speech rights. Thank you for listening, and unless somebody else has any specific questions for me, that's all I have to say. Do what you think is right.
Okay. Other discussion? Mr. Bradford?
I'm confused as to what you have a motion that you made,
Yes.
and I'm confused as to what it is. I gave you additional items, it's in the blue paper, of things that should be considered there. Did you include that addendum, or is that a part of your motion, or is that just sitting out there?
It's just sitting out there. My motion was to uphold the letter that I had issued to Mr. Perry on the 7th of this month.
So then I would offer an amendment to your motion to add the addendum listing those. I think there's 3. There may be 4 additional items that either occurred before or after your letter, so that at least for this current period of the 18 months that we've been dealing with inappropriate social media posts, that it would be relatively current. So that would be my motion, to add those additional
Addendum. Okay.
items.
Is there a second? Hearing none? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I move to close the
Okay, we have a motion to close debate. We have a first and second. Is there any discussion on that? Hearing none? That, I believe, takes a
Two-thirds.
simple majority.
Oh.
Simple majority. Let me make sure I'm right. You're telling me in my ear. I would believe in you.
2/3.
2/3, yeah. Okay, limit debate is 2/3. Yes, it is. So it needs a supermajority. So, okay. All in favor of closing debate, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, well, you have a supermajority. So debate is closed. We have the motion in front of us to uphold the letter. Ms. Bowie, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Mason?
Yes.
Ms. Justice?
Yes.
Ms. Bradford?
Yes.
Dr. Merrick?
No.
Mr. Wildeboer?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
No.
And Ms. Barnhart?
Yes.
Okay, that passes 5-2. So that will be in effect effectively today. All right. Next, we have no new business, so we will carry on with our closed session. I call for a motion to go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143, 318, 11 for the following purposes: to prevent disclosure of information as privileged or confidential pursuant to General Statute 115C 402, and not recognize the public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statutes. Prevent disclosure of student records rendered confidential under the Family Education Rights. To consult with an attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the board, and to consider qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, conditions of appointment, and conditions of initial employment of an individual employed or considered for employment within the school system, or to hear or investigate a complaint, charge, or grievance for or against any individual employee. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
First and second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? Passes 7-0, we are enclosed. If you need to use any facilities, please be in there by 4:25.
It's 4 minutes.
Huh?
4 minutes.
4 minutes.
Did you get the
Yeah,
clock
okay.
fixed yesterday in there?
Sorry? I would entertain a motion to accept, or to, yeah, accept the personnel report.
So moved.
A
Second.
motion, a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. That passes, do we have everybody? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 7-0. Last thing, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
First and second, any discussion? I'd like to discuss it because I have 3 minutes left. No. All in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Oh, there we got 2 of them. Sorry, 5-2 it passes. We are adjourned.
If y'all keep doing it, we won't leave. So let's not do that.